Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to cover some just basic curve creation. I'm just going to show you a couple of options here, just so that you can contextually follow along with some of the other videos where we might need a curve to do a particular process. So if you kind of, just watch through this video, see how the curves work. That way, if you're doing other videos, you'll sort of know how to at least make a basic curve and edit the shape without having to find some additional references and stuff. So we have this curves surfaces tab just here. And if you switch your menu set to modeling, you'll have a curves menu just here. Okay. There's sort of, four basic curve creation tools that you'll generally use. The first one is the circle curve. And what that'll do is basically just literally create a circular curve. It's closed and it's a single curve line. Okay, these are great for handles in your rigs, and you'll see these quite commonly when you're doing rigging. The next one is a square curve or square NURB square. Okay, this one I don't like really, and the reason for that is it's actually not creating a closed object. What it's doing is creating four lines which are separated. So this thing will easily pull apart if you're not careful, and so I don't really like using the NURB squares. Okay, they're more trouble than they're worth, especially when you're beginning, when you're starting out. Okay, the next one is an EP curve. Okay, that's short for edit point curve. Basically, the way that this works is you select it and you click a number of points, and it will add in a curve in between the points you click. The points you're clicking are the actual edit points. Okay, so this is sort of similar to, it's like a more basic version of the pen tool in something like Photoshop or Illustrator, vector-based drawing software. Okay. But you can create a basic curve like that. The EP, or the edit points, that the tool is named after, you can see that EP curve, edit point curve. If you right click and hold your mouse directly on the line, so you've got to get the tip of the arrow on your cursor right on the line. It's quite tricky. If you hold that right mouse button down there, you'll see that we've got edit points, and that's what the actual EP stands for. We've got control vertex and curve points, right? So edit point, if I highlight that and release, it will show up, it's kind of hard to see, it'll show up these little pink crosses at each position you clicked, right? So these are the points that I clicked out, and I can use the move tool to reposition them. So by default, anytime you draw a curve, it's going to be flat on the grid. If you're not sticking it onto an actual object, which is a bit more advanced. What this is going to do is just draw it on the grid, but then what we can do is go in and modify the positions to make the curve more three-dimensional. So it's going to go up and down in the y-axis, as well as sort of side to side, forwards, backwards. So we can get a three-dimensional curve there, something like that. Okay, now, one of the things to be aware of is if you right click and hold and you go to control vertex, the start of your curve, the first point you click, has a little sort of hollow square point instead of a dot or a cross, just there. The second point along you'll find is another open square. Okay, so there's two of these at the beginning. The rest of them are dots, which we can see one here. Okay, just these little dots, right? The first open square is the start of the curve. The second one is basically a point that allows you to adjust the angle that the beginning of the curve, the first curve segment, goes in, right? So if I wanted this to curve more this way, I can bring this out, and this will stay where it is, but this will kind of angle the curve out like that. So see how the next point down is sort of down here. There it is there. So the curve drops down and then swings up and around. If I wanted this curve to actually start and be more vertical, so it kind of comes in sort of this, so it drops first and then scoops up and around, I move the second point to adjust that angle, like that. So likewise, if I wanted to go up first, I could lift that up. So it's going to go up and down, like that. So it's important to understand that, yeah, the open one is the start of the curve, and the second one is sort of an adjustment for the beginning angle on the curve. The end of the curve also has a little secondary adjustment point, like that. And that can also be used in the same way for the end of the curve. But those 2 points look like the rest of them. The end points look just the same. So I can kind of grab these two and bring them up and over, and sort of have these almost pointing directly at where the start is, like that. So now that curve kind of almost starts where it ends. Okay, and I can actually just snap one to the other. If you use this little magnet point snap here, and you've got the end of the curve selected, like this, you can just grab that and stick it to that one. So even though it's not actually closed, it will kind of form a loop, what looks like a loop. So there's a little option for your curves. So that's an EP curve. The other curve, the other main curve type is a pencil curve. Whoops. Now you've got to be careful. You can see I've still got that point selected. If I right click and hit object mode, it'll allow me to select the actual, it'll allow me to select the curve, but I haven't deselected that. So if I click out here, it'll deselect everything. And then when I select the curve again, it's just got the curve. And that way it's not going to distort or go weird. All right, pencil curve. So that's this pencil curve tool just here. If you click that and then you click and drag, it'll just draw a curve out. You don't have to worry about clicking multiple points or anything like that. So something like that. All right, once again, it's going to draw it flat on the floor. Here's the big difference. Okay, if I go over to this one, in fact, what I might do is just click and drag across both to select both of them. If I click this button just here, which is component type, if we're on a PC, you could hit F8. That won't work on a Mac. F8 will be a volume control or something like that, and it'll basically just not trigger off. On a PC, you can click that. If you're on a Mac, just right click and hit edit point. But you might have to do it on both. You can see on the one that I did manually with the EP curve tool, it only has points where I clicked. With the pencil, it has way more because it's automatically kind of drawing those in as I'm drawing. Okay, we can kind of clean this curve up. It tends to be, these curves tend to be, pencil curves tend to be a bit more kind of bumpy and less smooth, like this. Okay, so we can actually fix that. If we select a curve and it's a bit jiggly and we want to smooth it out a bit, what we can do is come up to the curve menu and come down to smooth. Just click that and you can see it kind of smooths it out. If I go back to edit point, you can see it still has basically the same number of points. What it's done is adjusted everything so that it's a little bit smoother. Okay, let's say we want to close this curve up. Okay, what I'm going to do is grab control vertex. I'm going to grab the end and I'm just going to move this so it's close to and it's pointing at the start of the curve. Okay, so if you kind of end the curve close to the start and then just line them up like that, then switch back to object mode by right clicking and holding on the curve and selecting object mode. Then what we can do is come up to curves and hit, now I'm going to move this off to the side so you can see it. If I hit curves, close, open close, it should add in an extra little segment. If I go back into my points by right clicking on the curve and hitting edit point, you can see there that I've actually got, actually I should go to control vertex. Yeah, control vertex. You can see there that the start, the little square point, which is the start of the curve, is still there. Okay, and it's still got, you know, the points sort of near the end. So it has kind of just joined a little piece in there like that. Now I can still go through and I can still, you know, grab points. And even though there's more points in here, if I want this to be, you know, if I want to move this up and down, let's say, you know, let's say I grab that point there, and I want this to be high up in the air, and I lift that up, it's just going to do that. But if I grab a bunch of them, it's going to do that, and I might not want that, right? If I want this to be kind of just smooth going up and down, what I do is I open up the Tool Settings tab over here. Okay, that's this button just here. Find where it says Soft Selection, turn your Move Tool on, grab Soft Selection, switch that on, select the point where you want to have the point in the middle of the rise, and then just increase the fall off radius. Okay, now where it's black, that's where it will not move any of the points. Anything between where you've selected, anything that's yellow between the black will increase, it'll rise up smoothly like this. So you can make adjustments like this to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. You know, we can drop bits and pieces down like that. So, you know, you could maybe build like a roller coaster or something like this. You know, this would work good for like a road maybe going through some hills, like a country road or something like that. Lots of different uses for something like this, a curve like this. Okay, so that's basically how we create curves. So we could use a curve like this for a motion path, where we can get an object to run along like a train on a track. We could also generate geometry off this. We could actually create like a snake shape as like a static structure, like a kind of curvy knotted kind of pipe or something like that. There's lots of different things we can use curves for. We can use them as rig controls, and we can use them to help form shapes that we can use in our models. So I'm going to leave this video here. Some of the other videos are going to sort of require curves, and you'll see me sort of, you know, either have those curves there or build them in those videos. But this video is something you should obviously keep in mind and refer back to anytime you need to create a curve and you maybe can't remember which settings or where the tool was or whatever. So I'm going to leave this here, and I'll see you again soon.